Have you ever tasted a rotten fig? Ugh, ugh, ugh. Well, we might have to talk about that a little bit today in another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Today we're going through Jeremiah chapter 23 through 25, and tomorrow we're going to go through Jeremiah chapter 26 through 29. So let's jump right in and see what we get ourselves into today. So, right off the bat in chapter 23, we start out with the Lord talking about his sheep and his flock. And then, of course, he transitions here with Jeremiah into the righteous branch of David. So, these are things that God is showing Jeremiah. And there are some expressions here in verses 5 and 6. Look, the days are coming. That expression, the look, the days are coming, points to the messianic times. It is actually used 15 times in the book of Jeremiah, to be exact, that specific expression. Now, branch for David that we see in verse 5 as well, that's referring to, of course, the Messiah. Now, in verse 6 here, it says, in his days Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell securely. This is the name he will be called. The Lord is our righteousness. Now, there was another character in the Bible named Zedekiah. Now, his name meant the Lord is righteousness. Didn't mean the Lord is our righteousness, but the Lord is righteousness. So that is not the name of the Messiah. In fact, the coming of the Messiah being named the Lord is our righteousness does not refer to Zedekiah, as some people have said, because Zedekiah himself was nothing like the Messiah. Actually, his character, the things he did, his actions were nothing messianic about him. So that's not the dude. Then we get to verses 11 all the way through 31. In verse 11 here it says, because both prophet and priest are ungodly. Of course, the prophet and priests were accomplices in corruption and misleading the people when we were speaking about this time frame. Jeremiah had more to say against false prophets than any other Old Testament writer. He was blasting these guys. In fact, there's a multitude of verses and chapters that he just blasts all these priests and prophets. He had four main charges against them, though. And those four main charges were, number one, low morals and character. The second charge was they invented their own messages. In other words, they just made it up as they went, and they're like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," and it benefited themselves. Number three, they did not have a call from God. They just didn't. God did not call them to spread His word. They just were doing this for their own benefit. And number four, they were plagiarists. They would write things that were not theirs, and they would take words from others as their own that were not theirs. So that is another one of those evils that they did. One of these verses stood out to me. And I'll tell you why. It kind of triggered in one of those historical moments in the John mind here. It says, can a person hide in secret places where I cannot see him? The Lord's declaration. Do I not fill the heavens and the earth? The Lord's declaration. Huh. That, strangely enough, the tomb of the unknown soldiers popped into my mind for some reason. Mainly because nobody on earth knows who these soldiers are. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier came about in, I believe it was November of 1921. It was right after World War One, and there have been soldiers placed there from World War One, World War Two, I believe Korea and Vietnam. There were some placed in there as well. But the point is, nobody knows who these soldiers are. These are remains of soldiers who are unknown. But the inscription on the tomb says this: here rests in honored glory an American soldier known only to God. You see, God knows you whether you are alive or dead, or whether you don't even know who you are. If you've got whatever mental issues and you don't even know your own name, God knows who you are. He knows you before you were born. He knows you after you die. He knows you all the times in between. So just know that just a point to bring up for, I guess, hope. God knows you. God knows you. No matter what, God knows you. We get into chapter 24. This is the good and the bad figs. Now, you know my perspective on this. This is God teaching Jeremiah through a vision and a parable of a vision. And this right here to me is evidence of the way Jesus also taught. So Jesus taught just like God taught when it comes to this stuff. So there was this parable of this fig, right? There were these good figs and these bad figs that he got. And the good figs, they were the exiles from Judah. God says he was going to keep his eyes on them for their good and return them to his land. Okay, and then there was these bad figs as well. And those bad figs he even listed is the way I'll deal with King Zedekiah of Judah, his officials. I'll make them an object of horror and a disaster to all the kingdoms of the earth, an example for disgrace, scorn, ridicule, cursing. He said he was going to send the sword, famine, and plague against them. Lots of bad stuff was going to happen to Zedekiah and these folks. Then we get to Jeremiah chapter 25. This is about the 70-year exile. 70 years. And then we get this imagery of the wrath of God, right? So right off the bat, we start out with this cup of God's wrath. So God's wrath is in this little cup, right? Well, these imagery, it changes from a cup of wine and then it progresses into a lion. And then it changes again to an image of the Lord treading out grapes in a wine press. And then once more it changes to the image of a huge storm as nation after nation succumbs to Babylon's advances. That's scary stuff. I was impressed by the imagery of that chapter. I hope this has touched you. That's all I have for you tonight. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Click that like button, the subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. And follow me and hit that little boxing glove so we can rumble together on Rumble. We'll see you tomorrow.